Imagine standing on a battlefield and realizing everyone around you is terrified. That's exactly what happened to David. Israel was facing the Philistine army, and every day, a giant named Goliath walked onto the battlefield. He was enormous. He was heavily armed, and his voice was loud enough to make an entire army afraid. Every morning, he challenged Israel, "Send someone to fight me." But nobody moved. Not the soldiers. Not the experienced warriors. Nobody. For 40 days, the same thing happened. Goliath appeared. The Israelites became afraid, and everyone went back into hiding. Then David arrived. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a famous warrior. He was just a young shepherd who had come to bring food to his brothers. But when David heard Goliath, he couldn't understand why everyone was so afraid. David wasn't looking at the giant the way everyone else was. Everyone was asking, "How big is Goliath?" David was asking, "How big is my God?" David's confidence didn't impress everyone. His older brother became angry with him. "Why are you even here?" Others looked at David and saw a young shepherd. Even King Saul told him, "You can't fight this man." And honestly, from a human perspective, they were right. David was young. Goliath was an experienced warrior. David had no armor, no military training, no sword, only a sling and 5 smooth stones. But David had something else. He remembered what God had already done. He remembered protecting his father's sheep from lions and bears. David understood something that fear makes us forget. The giant wasn't his first battle. God had already helped him survive battles nobody else had seen. And that's important for you too. Maybe you're facing something today that feels bigger than anything you've faced before. A financial problem, a broken relationship, a career setback, a family situation, a future you can't figure out. You may feel unqualified. You may feel too small, but don't forget what God has already brought you through. David walked toward Goliath. The giant laughed. He looked at David and couldn't believe what he was seeing. A young shepherd standing in front of him. Goliath expected armor, a sword, a trained warrior. Instead, David carried a sling and 5 stones. But David wasn't trusting in the stone. He wasn't trusting in his own strength. He was trusting God. David said, "You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord." Then David reached into his bag. He took 1 stone, placed it into the sling, and ran toward the giant. Not away. Toward him. He released the stone. It struck Goliath, and the giant fell. The entire battlefield changed. In one moment, the army that had been terrified suddenly had courage. The people who had been hiding started moving forward. Why? Because one person was willing to believe that fear wasn't the final answer. David's story isn't really about a stone. It's about perspective. Everyone saw the size of the giant. David saw the greatness of God. And maybe that's what you need to change today. Your problem may actually be big. Your situation may genuinely be difficult. Faith doesn't mean pretending that your problems don't exist. Faith means believing that your problems aren't bigger than God. So what is your Goliath? Fear? Debt? Loneliness? Failure? A diagnosis? A broken relationship? A dream that feels impossible? Whatever it is, don't let it convince you that you're powerless. Remember what David remembered. God had already been faithful before the giant ever appeared, and he can still be faithful now. You don't need to know exactly how everything will work out. You don't need to feel fearless. You just need enough courage to take the next step. David didn't wait until he felt powerful. He stepped forward while trusting God. So if you're facing something impossible today, comment, "My giant is not bigger than my God." Red heart like this video if you believe it. Share this with someone who's facing a giant of their own. Subscribe for more powerful Bible stories and Christian encouragement. And remember, sometimes God doesn't remove the giant first. Sometimes he gives you the courage